Can I read to you, before we get to your comments,
Sure.
from a dissent? There were only two that dissented, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote it. She said, by maintaining the peace cross on a public highway, the commission elevates Christianity over other faiths and religion over non-religion. Memorializing the service of American soldiers is an admirable and unquestionably secular objective. But the commission does not serve that objective by displaying a symbol that bears a starkly sectarian message. A few months ago, you predicted this outcome.
You know, I did, and that's what it seemed to be when you looked at oral argument. You can see what she's saying. If somebody just fell from Mars and looked at this 40-foot cross, and it really is impressive if you've driven by it, it would look like, well, this is a very religious community. But what Alito was saying is, and 7 members of the court, you can't just look at it the way Justice Ginsburg is saying. You have to look at it through history. It's now become sort of part of the landscape of Prince George's County, and we're going to kind of grandfather it in. We're going to have a different principle for things that have been there a while, and it would be almost a violation to remove it at this point.
So does this become a landmark case? I know you live in California now. Right. There's a big controversy there. I mean, so does this case now cover all of these questionable ones?
Well, if they've been up for a while, I think it does. This is a whole new principle, but it's you know, the court came right out of the box and said nobody complained about this for 90 years, and now here come the plaintiffs.
Why did you why did you know that it would go this way?
Well, from listening to the questioning, especially of Justices Breyer and Kagan, I thought they were looking for a way to sort of accommodate without stating a whole new principle of constitutional law, and this was the very one, the idea of history and grandfathering in without necessarily. The next case, if it involves this kind of monument, but it hasn't been up for 90 years, could have a different result.
I see. Okay, well, that was an interesting one. The court has, I guess, 16 more cases it has to announce before June 30th.
That's right.
They're going to make some more announcements tomorrow.
That's right.
Everyone's been waiting for this decision on the census.
Yes.
Linda Greenhouse of the New York Times writing this, that a dismiss is improvidently granted, whatever that means, you'll explain, would leave Judge Furman's opinion in place and would enable the professionals in the Census Bureau who strongly objected to adding the citizenship question free to go about their business, counting us, all of us. If I'm right about these recent signals that the court knows how to save itself, now is the time. Do you have a prediction on how this might go?
Yeah, I don't think it will go the way she's suggesting. Now, remember, Justice Ginsburg in a public address also said or suggested there are some sharp divisions that remain in the big cases in the court. That seems to me it's got to be either this one or the gerrymandering case. What Linda Greenhouse is saying is they do have this new evidence that you've probably heard about that maybe someone had in mind some not very good motives here. But the court takes the record as it takes it. And I think it probably will not ignore it. To your procedural question, they once or twice a term can say, oops, we should never have taken this case, and never mind, dismissed as improvidently granted.
But what about the fact that the citizenship question was on the census, 50, 60 years ago? So doesn't that have any... Does that weigh in on this case here? It
will, and I think the majority in upholding it, if it does, and I predict it will probably make just that point. On the other hand, you have now this new evidence that has been prominent throughout the country.
But they can't just send it back because there's a deadline?
Well, they're going to decide the case by the 30th. They could say, we dismiss, oops, or they could say, here's how we decided, and now we send it back for further proceedings. It's interesting because just yesterday, the district court judge said we should reopen this based on this new evidence.